Good day, and welcome to my presentation, Creating a Programmatic Approach to OT Security. Today, as promised, we're going to talk about some current challenges with OT security and how we want to tie things together to help move the needle and be much more efficient. I also want to talk about why you should start with a tech-enabled vulnerability assessment. Many places don't know what they have or how it's configured, and so they start with a paper-based exercise that may collect information from the assets, but instantly ages. And there's some insight to that, but there's also some challenges to that. I want to talk about how our approach, our recommended approach, allows you to align security priorities with organizational needs, but also how to build a future-based security program. When I say future, I mean future in terms of addressing the challenges in OT, like lack of staff, needing to provide compensating controls, and building a management and a support structure that doesn't require significant manual effort or headcount, because both of those are a challenge in this environment. So why is OT security different? This is, of course, very basic and understood by very, very many people, but just to make sure we set the stage for why our recommended approach is more effective. First and foremost, OT does not have new technology. We can't simply use group policy to update everyone from Windows 7 to Windows 10 and apply all patches that come out on a Tuesday. We therefore need to be able to have adaptive approaches and different technologies that are unique to the specific endpoint and system. And that means we need to be quite creative. OT also has dire consequences to loss of visibility or access. So the stakes are higher. We can't try things, and if something breaks or falls apart, we can build it back up without significant consequence in many cases. Not always, but there is significant risk. So understanding what we have and how we're handling it is a key component to making sure we ensure safe, expected, reliable operations. Third, OEMs often place significant barriers on approved behaviors. This is changing rapidly. But the vendors are in the untenable position of needing to support and warranty your equipment, and so they get a little bit territorial about what's on their systems because they're being held accountable. There are ways for all three organizations, mine, yours, and the OEM, to work together, and we're seeing more and more collaboration, which is great, but we still have some obstacles to overcome. And then finally, OT has to be able to do plan B, C, or D. We call them compensating controls. What it means is I can't do in OT what I want to do or often do in IT. I need to go to plan B, C, or D. And what do I mean by that? A quick look at this decision tree, which I believe came from the IEC 62443 recommendation on how to patch OT systems. As you can see, we need to first understand, and this is why people go for the assessment or a cursory inventory of what do I have and what's wrong with it. But I can come in and tell you that you don't patch, you don't change passwords. I probably haven't helped you to move the needle, because once I understand I have patches, then I need to know, does it affect me or not? If it doesn't, we just go back to business as usual. We don't worry about the patch. Already a departure from IT. If it does affect us, the first question we ask is, can we do something else rather than patch it? And so you're starting to see that we need to be very creative. I always tell IT people, I can get the OT team there. We're just going to need to take a different path. And so usually what happens is if there is no workaround, or there is, what is that workaround? To understand that question, we need to understand the nature and target of the risk, the vulnerability footprint. Can we risk it? What will it do to our environment if we lose that particular piece of equipment from patching or taking it off? Levers you can pull, and to do that you need to have a much better understanding of the asset than simply IP and MAC address list. So should we do an assessment? Absolutely, but I don't recommend a paper-based one-time assessment. There are some absolutely amazing people out there that can tell you exactly what's wrong, some very professional people that have very capable analysis tools, etc. We're not saying throw them out, we're saying modify them. The results probably won't surprise you. I could bring any pen tester into an OT environment and probably have the keys to the kingdom in fairly short order. So let's put our money where it makes sense, right? Not an IT-based risk ranking, but an OT-based. And what that means is, what can we practically do in the environment? Maybe we don't start with vulnerability scanning. Maybe we start with network architecture, for example. So what you really need, though, is an automated or near real-time assessment tool. Security is a program, and too many times OT grabs an assessment, they get some information, they work away and chip away at it for 15, 16, 18, 24 months, and then come back and reassess, but they've sort of lost the visibility between day one when the report's handed over and 24 months later when you do it again. If you were to actually create an automated inventory, which brings all of your assets in scope, and then details about the asset like vulnerability mapping, its criticality, the owner, its place in the process, and pushed all that to a reporting dashboard, you'd then be able to have what we call a real-time or near real-time live assessment tool, a feedback loop that lets you have assessment forever and ever and ever. And those same very capable professional people can come look at your data and work with you to provide that same level of analysis, but now on empirical data in your environment. Now, the best part about that is as you start to make changes on those devices and reduce the risk, because you're automating that feedback, you're getting instant visibility as to whether or not you're progressing. It's horrible to say to the boss, here's what I'm going to do. Here's the assessment, here's the money we spent, and there's no movement. And or we start to apply patches or harden systems, but I have no way of showing that we're improving until we do the next assessment. If you had this feedback loop, you'd be able to look not only at inventory, but vulnerabilities, patches, how they're configured, users and dormant users, the status of various components like anti-malware, how you're connecting and communicating, any violations to your network segmentation, backup and recovery status, and also the asset criticality to provide context. Critical assets need different behavior and probably go to the top of the list for remediation. So we advocate that inventory, its context, and of course the ability to act on what we see, coupled with reporting and tracking dashboards that are automatically updated, is the future we talked about earlier of OT security. And what that does is when I build this in such a fashion that I do that automation and the reporting pulls up to a central team, the central team is able to then align what they're seeing in the field as well as what's coming out in the wild and align that to corporate expectations. So for example, if Bluekeep were to come out, to be able to see in your dashboard your entire fleet of where that lights you up and where you want to act in which level of urgency, i.e. Critical systems that have a significant risk that maybe don't have a recent backup, or the whitelisting isn't in lockdown mode, or it's on an older version of OS that's maybe more fragile. This is where you start to take information and turn it into context and align your ability to act based on corporate risk appetites. It also allows you to have a very small specialized team do your research once and share it multiple times across the entirety of your fleet. This truly is how you get more succinct and sustainable security over an entire fleet. It also drives consistency, and it means that a smaller footprint of people are able to keep a consistent eye for the entire organization. It's a significant improvement over paper-based assessments, over individual silos of function, or manual efforts around disk sneaker running around with patching on an ad hoc basis. This future visibility and this architecture is going to drive generational improvement, exponential improvement in OT security for many years to come. So, I mean, that was fairly quick, but to make sure that I can get back to the summary and what I wanted to share with you today, I recommend you take your assessment money and start to build a management platform. Reuse that cash to build the building blocks that will help you manage your program over time, day in and day out, week in and week out, year over year. Once you start to build that context, you can use empirical data coupled with your context. I can tell you that you have thousands of unpatched devices. That doesn't help you understand where to start or if it's important to you or not. Applying those different measurements of the assets as well as your environment allows you to give context and understand your specific risk. Scale your automation and incorporate all assets at all sites. We can't leave out PLCs and relays and controllers or smaller sites. Sometimes the weakest link is the backdoor in, malicious intended or otherwise. Malware gets in, it goes wherever. It doesn't care if that's a high priority subnet or asset for you. It sees computers, it sees an opportunity, it spreads. Feed that information to a focused cross-sectional team to support. Research and plan once and share multiple times. Automated action and feedback. Almost anybody can tell you information about the system. You need to start to do things on that system. We talk about taking security to the endpoint. We've done perimeter. We can do network-based monitoring and detection. We need to get to the endpoint. It's where the risk is. It's where the live and die by whether or not we're up or down actually truly happens. And the dashboard provides you both evidence of progress and of need. If you're making progress and Bluekeep comes out, you can see how big a deal it is for you, whether you need 5 guys to start right now or whether you can wait till Monday on most of the assets. That is the true value of this sort of approach. So finally, my name is Rick Kaun. I'm the VP of Solutions for Verve. I've been doing ICS security for about 20 years.